The modern healthcare system won't help you heal.
It's designed to keep you sick and dependent on drugs.
If you want to get well, you got to get out of the system.
You found Predictive Health Clinic.
Join us as we get well and stay healthy.
Thanks for joining us, folks. This is the Predictive Health Clinic podcast. I am joined today by Dr. Kedrick Pickering. Dr. Pickering was recommended to me by a friend of mine, one of my business partners, Ryan Shute. Ryan is not a medical professional, but I kind of hope I'm going to have him on the show someday because he's got quite the health story. However, having said that, Dr. Pickering, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. All right. So on this show, we focus very specifically on trying to give people concrete medical information they can put into practice in their own lives, get in, get out, and get on with their day. So what specific health issue do you want to address today?
We could look, as I was saying to you earlier, my specific area of expertise is obstetrics and gynecology. That's my area. And so I've been involved in the area of women's health for the last almost 40 years. In recent times, I spent a lot of time speaking publicly about the menopausal and perimenopausal woman and helping women in that age group understand and cope with the changes of life as they occur, as you get more mature.
Yeah.
But I spend a lot of time also talking about general health issues and encouraging people to try and live healthy lives. But women's health is my area.
How'd you get interested in that specifically?
When I finished medical school, I live on an island in the Caribbean, and when I finished medical school and I looked at the areas of need specifically and where I could have the greatest impact on my community and my country at large, there was a glaring need in that particular field. And it was one of my better subjects in my final year in medical school. So it kind of came naturally at that particular point in time.
Just because that's where the need was.
Basically, I was committed to, I had a general love for psychiatry or even pediatrics, but I was also fairly decent with my hands, and so a surgical specialty beckoned. And so it was the area of greatest need that I could help, and that was my driving force.
I'm going to go off script a little bit just because I'm curious. How many babies have you delivered?
I get asked that question, ever so often, and I've never really paid attention to it. But, there was a time when I was the only person practicing obstetrics and gynecology in my community, somewhere between 1992 and 1999. And you can do the math. And there was, at that time, probably like between 10 to 20 a month. It's certainly not as much as anything like that nowadays, but I've never put a number to it. It's never really that important. I just did what I could.
Yeah. All right. So what's the biggest misconception that exists in popular culture about women's health?
That I think we take our health for granted, and how you impress on younger women the importance of taking care of themselves, taking care of their bodies for the long run, for the long haul. Investment in the future is a critical component. And when you fast forward to what we call the transition years, it used to be called change of life. We now call it the transition years, somewhere between, say, 45 and 55. That's when the troubles start, because if you weren't prepared for it, then you can't cope with the changes that naturally happen to you and the consequences thereof. So, when you talk about popular culture, is understanding and getting women from a younger age to understand and appreciate that investment in your health, even at a young age, is extremely critical for the long run.
What are the most common failures to invest in health that you see amongst younger women?
Food,
Use those.
food,
What you eat.
yeah, food, food. I mean, I was, just as an aside, I was commenting to my wife the other day. We went to a wedding, and it was somebody who could be our granddaughter, a family friend. She's just 20, 21. And, we were two of the more senior people at the wedding, but all of the people were basically young. And if I did a mental survey, I'd say 75% of them are overweight.
Wow.
Overweight, and they really trying to fit into the clothes that are fashionable in today's world. And that caught my attention, from my physician's point of view, but also because I'm somebody who tried to invest in my own health and understand and appreciate what that means for the long run. I try really hard to get, my clients and people in general to understand that if you don't invest in your health when you're young, it's going to catch up with you at some point in time. You can't treat it in your old way when you're young and expect it to pay dividends for you when you get older. So the investment is important.
So what specific action do you recommend to your younger clients in order to prepare for this transition period?
I try to use basic principles, and I explain to them that, life is about night and day. Night and day. There are 24 hours in a day. There's nothing written in the sky that tells you today's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It is night and it's day, and we just roll over. And nothing has changed since we were growing up, that there are 24 hours in a day. And therefore, how you utilize that 24 hours is ultimately what determines your success or failure. And nothing has changed since we were growing up, that you 8 hours of work, 8 hours of recreation, and 8 hours of rest. And if you at least keep it that simple, then you can start working out the details. I like to keep people focused on the big things, and then you work through the details. Whereas people try to work through the details, so people get caught up in diet and this and that. They're not paying attention to how much rest they get, how much exercise they need to put in, or what type of food. So get them stay on the basics, because that's the bottom line.
What's the most common compliment that you hear in your practice?
For me personally, as a physician,
Or you personally as a physician?
yeah, I think people think that I care.
Do you have a sense for what it is that you do that gives people that feeling?
That's an interesting question, because I read something a long time ago that says, sincerity and honesty never fails to move men. And so I just try to be, as honest and straightforward as I can be in terms of helping people to understand whatever their malady might be, whatever their particular concern might be. Try to get them. Go ahead.
I had a doctor on a while back, Dr. Vivian Lowe, and she said something that just struck me like a hammer in the face. She said, the job of a doctor is to tell people things they don't want to hear. And as you were saying, the honesty and sincerity are what drives people's sense that you care. I thought about that in Dr. Lowe's statement. It's counterintuitive that giving people bad news would also result in them feeling like you care. And yet, the alternative, lying to people in a way that makes them feel good, doesn't last. telling people terrible news, but telling them that in an offensive, irritating way doesn't work. Yeah, I can see how that could be the effect. Honesty, sincerity, even if you have to give bad news. Now, I would guess as an obstetrician, you also get to give people good news.
Yeah, there's no feeling, quite as exhilarating as every time you see a baby born. I mean, that's as many times as I've done it, every time that happens and you see and I'll tell you what, it's that transition from total despair when a woman is in labor and pushing and about to give up and screaming. And then in the next few minutes, is that joy, that smile, the serenity that just transcends what took place just before. And I've never grown accustomed to that because every time it happens, it just literally takes my breath away. Because everybody's unique in their own way, and every baby that is born is a unique human being. So it's not like just another baby born. It's never been like that with me. It's been like, thank you, and you savor the moment and then you move on.
How has being there at that extraordinary moment when a new human being comes into the world changed you over the course of your life?
And in my book, Faith in Medicine, it draws on some of those experiences that I've had over the years. So far from being a religious book, it is a book about my experiences and how I've seen from those experiences that there is something bigger than you and I. The moments when you just can't explain what happened, or the moments that occur when you don't know how to react or cope, but yet still you find some way to be able to do that. And it is that sense of deeper understanding or not understanding that led me to to write that book, because I tried really hard not to be philosophical or theological and just to speak about my experiences. And basically what I said is that these are my experiences that I share with you. The verdict is up to you. You can decide how you want to handle it. I'm not trying to influence anybody. I'm just sharing with you the things that I experienced.
Is there one particular story that you always reflect back on and go, yeah, I was a different person after going through that than I was before?
Yeah, being in the operating room at 2 o'clock in the morning with the patient bleeding, literally bleeding to death. You've been there for 3+ hours. There's no hope in sight, no blood available to transfuse.
Oh,
And everything that you do, everybody's tired, everybody's exasperated and fatigued, and you just literally ready to throw your hands up in the air and say, I'm done. There's nothing else I can do. But somewhere in the deep recesses of your mind, you say a quiet prayer, and you ask the Almighty, if you're there, I need you. And without you, I'm hopeless at this point in time. And then something happened. And a peace and peacefulness descended upon the room that just changed the whole face of the room without anybody being able to say anything. It didn't make the surgery any easier, but it gave you an assurance that it will be well. And somehow you found the energy and the wherewithal to make it through. Difficult to explain, but that's what transpired, and it's hard to ignore that something happened.
I trust that story is in the book.
It is. It is.
What's the name of the book again?
The title of the book is Daily Lessons and Insights from a Doctor's Handwritten, No AI, Journal of How to walk in faith and medicine.
No AI.
No, yeah.
Handwritten journal, really.
Handwritten. I wrote everything with my hand.
Was this a practice that was this something you practiced for years, this daily journal?
No, I journal. So I keep my own journal. And it was my publisher who said the best books that written are handwritten. And so she encouraged me from the very start to do exactly that. Yeah. So I wrote, with my pen. Pen, I sat down and write that entire book and then typed it up.
Wow. How long did you work creating that first draft?
The whole process took about 6 months.
The whole process from the time
yeah.
you started writing until you actually had a finished book?
Yeah, took about 6 months. But I had a coach who was my publisher who worked with me from beginning to end.
Oh, all right. Very good.
Mhm.
All right. I want to ask you, this is my favorite question I ask all my guests. I call this the billboard question. I use that term because in marketing, if you have a billboard, the reality is you've only got about at the most 8 words you can put on a billboard because people are going by it at highway speeds. There's not a lot of message you can deliver in 8 words. If you wanted to deliver a single message about health, how to be healthy, how to recover your health if you've lost it, how to keep it if you're fortunate enough to have not lost it, but you had no more than 8 words, what would those 8 words be?
Health is a gift. Protect it. Preserve it. The investment will pay dividends.
Health is a gift. Protect it. Preserve it. Now, you're over my 8-word limit, so we're going to have to figure out how to. I think the dividends statement we can put in smaller characters at the bottom of the billboard. All right, so the book is called Hope. I'm sorry, I've got it over here and I keep flipping away from it. Gosh, let's try that again. The name of the book is Walk in Faith and Medicine by Dr. Kedrick Pickering. Also, parenthetically, the former Deputy Premier of the British Virgin Islands. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'd love to know how a physician ended up becoming Deputy Premier, but we'll do that another time. Dr. Pickering, thank you for being on the Predictive Health Clinic podcast. We're glad you were here. All your contact information will be available on the show notes, but especially I encourage folks, check out Walk in Faith and Medicine. Intriguing. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it.
Are you a healthcare practitioner eager to escape the grind of corporate medicine?
Are you ready to make a massive difference in your world? Listen up.
We are the Wizard of Ads.
For 40 years, we've created dominant brands in a variety of industries.
Now, we're bringing our magic to healthcare.
We're seeking one extraordinary healthcare practitioner to help us build the first national brand in direct primary care.
If you think you could be that person, let's talk.
Email us at health@wizardofads.com.
Tell us why you think you're the one.
That's health@wizardofads.com.